Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another installment of the Dual Screams podcast that never gets old saying dual screams. That's why I love this month. I can say some puns that are a little bit cringy, and hopefully you won't punish me too much for that. So, in going with the theme of spooky games, this week I am very proud to bring on the show Henry Hoare, the best last name ever for a human being, I must say. Co-developer of Bloodwash. Ooh, it's actually the best name for a game ever, also, coincidentally. A giallo. I use my Italian fingers here when I say that. Giallo-inspired laundry horror game with low poly PS1 style graphics. Henry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, man. Likewise, I've played your game up, down, left, right, backwards, forwards, blood soaked, dry cleaned, and it's it is one hell of an experience. I'm actually sitting here in my office and I have a pile of laundry done behind me, and no joke, right underneath me. I'm gonna use my feet to grab these right now, like a monkey that I am. I missed a pair of socks. That's just like the absolute worst thing that can happen.
I had a solo sock just living on its own for about a month. Just found the other one when I did laundry this morning. And I got to tell you, having a washer and dryer in my home is like number one requirement now for me.
I feel like I should tip my laundry person because I do a drop off service because I'm a little
Mhm.
bit lazy when it comes to chores around the house. Like, I'll clean most things, but laundry, I'm like, I'll put it in a bag, give it to someone. Here, you do this for me. But like matching my socks because I have so many socks, just trying to like make your way through that labyrinth of a task because I have so many socks in my life and so many are missing. The dog eats half of them sometimes. So,
Of course.
in any case, let's get on to your amazing little game here. I do want to kick off things with I want your thoughts on something very specific. And that is, what is it like having one of, if not the dopest loading screen I've seen in a game?
The the bloody
Yes.
washing machine.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun to make. And it was fun to work it into the pause menu as well,
Mhm.
have a little spinning. Um, we knew we needed something as the game kept getting bigger and loading took longer. Uh, and that was just the first thing that came to mind. Let's just
So
throw the washer up there.
it's so schlocky and 70s 80s horror of it that it's utter perfection, and it really puts you in that vibe of this is going to be a fun game. Like, it's going to be a good ride all the way through, and it really was. So I want you, if you could first, if you could define for our non-Italian speaking audience out there what a giallo inspired game is, and also go into what the game's overall premise and sort of the setup is for Bloodwash.
Right. So Bloodwash is a first-person single-player horror game inspired by old Italian giallo movies. Giallo movies being mystery, fiction, thriller type horror movies. A lot of them were slashers. Uh, but biggest thing that probably sets them apart from a lot of old retro horror movies being the mystery element that focuses a lot on there being some twist, some big reveal towards the end that you're learning bits and pieces as you go along on the ride. Bloodwash, of course, about a pregnant college student who goes to do her laundry, finds out the washer in her building is broken. Conveniently, there's one more bus going to the edge of town to the 24/7 laundromat. Very common occurrence in the world, of course.
Right.
Lo and behold, there is a serial killer. that's been on the loose recently. And pure coincidence, they happen to be targeting pregnant women, such
Yeah,
as yourself.
yeah. The game throws a lot of information at you from the get go. Sarah is, I don't know how she's living in that apartment. It looks like squalor. There's like pizza boxes everywhere. She has an abusive, drunk, alcoholic boyfriend that's always ragging on her. She's also pregnant. So there's a lot going on in her life. She's trying to juggle school and work, has a big interview, and it all sets the stage for what I think is one of the most creative horror games I've played in recent memory. Just want to get that out there. Just so it's
Well, thank
known.
you.
Just so that's out there. You mentioned taking a bus to like someplace out of town to do your laundry. Why is that bus driver such a dick?
Well, I think a lot of bus drivers are just not particularly happy that they're driving buses.
Right.
I'm from New York City. I
As am
took the
I.
bus a lot. I've had my fair share of rude bus drivers. Not let me or other people on the bus for no reason. Just make weird comments. I think it's something a lot of people have experienced.
Right, but if I'm first of all, I'm getting the third degree from the get-go from this guy as I get on the bus. He's like, it's kind of like if you get on the bus, what you're doing, at this hour. And I have what I imagine off screen a giant bag of laundry. This guy's giving me shit. He's like, I don't buy that story. I'm like, bro, there's like I'm sure there's laundry. I have my own soaps. I have all the things. And he thinks I'm going out of town for some kind of drug run or some shit like that.
I mean, it's off screen. You don't know what
Yeah.
type of bag it is. It could
Right.
be just a suspicious looking closed duffel bag. In
Yes.
defense of the bus driver.
And then we get a nice little creeper dude in the bus as well, which is also it's very it pulls from a lot of sort of character types from those old sort of horror films. Like there's like the crazy guy that knows a little bit too much.
Think like the gas station worker in
Right.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right. Who gives you the warning? Like I always call him the Ralph. Ralph is a Friday the 13th reference. Crazy Ralph. Who knows like all the goings on of the town, when you're gonna die, the exact moment's gonna happen.
Exactly.
So what is kind of walk us through the core gameplay loop of Bloodwash? What can well the game is out, so what do we do in this game? What's it all about?
A majority of what you do in Bloodwash is what the premise sets you up to do. You go and do your laundry. Anything that happens past that is out of my hands. But you go to this like strip mall area in the middle of the night on the outskirts of town to do your laundry. For some reason, there are a few other stores still open. Someone else doing their laundry, people to talk to, ways to entertain yourself while getting your laundry done. And that is a majority of the game. It then goes on from there as the horror setup is brought more into play, and you find a way to deal with this killer who's running around and makes themselves known to you.
Yeah, the Womb Ripper, which is such a perfectly schlocky name for a
All
horror
credit goes to my
franchise
other developer for that.
killer. It's just obvious and on the nose enough, but it just rolls off the tongue in such a beautiful way. Like, what other name could there have been for this killer?
Yeah,
other than
perfectly self-explanatory.
Right. I do want to touch on the graphic style of the game because I as my listeners know, I'm a huge fan for the crunchy PS1 low poly lo-fi graphics because it lends so much more than what a modern game can do, oddly enough. Like when I step out of my apartment and I see that fog rolling in, which also,
Mhm.
by the way, gave me some Silent Hill sort of vibes, and I was like, "Fuck you, developer," because I missed that franchise. So
No one's allowed to use fog in their game
you can
without
you can
someone calling it Silent Hill.
you can just eat my dick. Oh, just like that look of it. What are your thoughts on that art style and that approach, and what it does so well for horror?
I think a lot of other developers have spoken about this before,
Mhm.
that the lack of detail lends something to like fear of the unknown. If there's some character standing in the distance and the game's low resolution, low poly, you're going to be even less sure of what it is you're looking at. Uh, Now, my very game developer answer is that it's a lot faster, it's a lot
Mhm.
cheaper, it's a lot easier to make. It lets people like my other developer, Jordan King, and I spend a year working on this game part time, just whenever we're able, while we both have full time jobs. Um, it is just that much more accessible, easy to accomplish. And I think also even though it's all paying homage to a certain time, the PlayStation 1 and those games, it has a lot of room for creativity.
Mhm.
The the fewer polys you have in a character model, the more significant each one is. So all the character models in Bloodwash have a very distinct head shape.
Mhm.
So like I could look at a dozen uh, untextured character models and I could pinpoint, okay, like Jordan made that character model because that's the way he does his heads. um, so those restrictions wind up resulting in a lot of creativity.
You would think, given how this sort of there's a huge community of developers out there on the indie side who are focusing on this specific art style and look for horror games, especially. 'Cause again, it does so well for the genre. You would think that you would have a big time developer say, "Hey, Resident Evil team, have a, do like a small thing with like 5 or 8 of you. Make like an RE1 to 3 throwback game. Do it for like a couple months, pump it out, and it would get totally gobbled up. But no one thinks to do that in the AAA space, which is, I
Yeah,
think,
I
it's a really weird thing to me.
it is surprising that it hasn't happened yet.
Mhm.
And it almost makes me wonder if it ever will, if it hasn't happened by now. Is this the explosion of it in the indie scene has been going on, I don't know, probably like 5 years now.
Right.
Um, like of it being really in the zeitgeist, like a lot of people being really aware of it. But maybe I don't know enough about the inner workings of AAA to really speak to it, but I'm sure a lot of it has to do with money. They don't
Right.
like to take risks. Um, Graphics are such a big selling point for a lot of the mainstream game players. Like how good does it look? Uh, I'd say a majority of people, maybe not a majority, there's a significant portion of people who care a lot about how good a game looks and what the new big advancements are.
Right. I mean, if your goal is to market that, but retro NES sprite based games also thrive in the market as well. That could come from a AAA, well, AAA indie sort of like in a sense, like big time indie
R-
teams making those
right,
games.
but I mean, what we could probably count on one hand the number of AAA teams that do
Yeah.
2D stuff at all.
Yeah, it's true.
Like I couldn't even tell you what names, and even then I'd probably be like, yeah, they're triple A indies, in
Yeah,
that middle area.
yeah. I feel it's just me trying to wish it into existence. Like
Oh, absolutely.
at some point, I mean, Konami's trying not to suck again. Apparently, we'll see how that pans out. Um, they've invited like indie devs to go through their old library of IP and see what they can make and do of them. And having a small team do like a throwback Silent Hill game, which wouldn't cost, I would say, that much. Just take a little bit of a chance. There's an audience that would definitely devour that shit instantly. And you guys also, like, you're partnered with Torture Star Video, which is an offshoot of Puppet Combos, their
Mhm.
publishing arm, and that's a huge audience. So it is there.
Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, I'm like, triple A's, stay away, leave us alone. Like, let us have this.
Yeah, it is. It's a weird thing because I feel like in a lot of ways when I just go through itch.io and I come across just so many low poly horror games. I'm like, this is like a treasure trove of stuff. I can just play these,
Mhm.
like this like Dino Crisis looking game, this Resident Evil looking game. Like, this is great. And I do want you guys to sort of have that to yourselves, but I long for like just uh give me like something super polished, but it looks like old school with the budget of, like they didn't cost
I
much
think
back in the day. I would imagine.
I I think the ideal scenario that probably both you and I want is
Mm.
just for indie devs to have the money.
Yeah. See, that's it.
Give
Yes.
us money so we can make it.
I would say yes. Just do the contract work, the licensing. Like, okay, I want them to approach you guys, give you the satchel of cash, the dollar sign. Here you go. Here you go, Henry. Make us a new clock tower game. Here's your budget. Do it a PS1 style. Go for it. Go nuts. Um. So
Me
certainly,
personally, sorry.
yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't think I would ever agree to that,
Mm.
even if it was Resident Evil. Like
Oh, really?
I would not want that pressure, and I
Oh.
wouldn't want those restrictions.
Ooh. Interesting. Would
I can
you?
also say,
Yes.
me personally as a developer, I have a strong aversion to doing sequels. I don't think I would ever want to do a sequel
Oh, wow.
if it was always completely up to me, which it is not. So I'm neither confirming nor denying anything.
So it's gonna scratch Bloodwash 2 off the table. That dream just died. um. So where did this idea, this premise, the setting, where did Bloodwash give me the inception of this nightmare that we play through? What is it? Where did it come from? What happened to you once upon a time in a laundromat that spawned this video game so many years later?
Bloodwash is really from the mind of Jordan King slash Black Eyed Priest,
Mhm.
the my other co-developer for Bloodwash. Um, Jordan had actually already been working on Bloodwash for a month or two before I started working on it. We had been working together on side projects for maybe like 6 months at that point. All stuff like we were prototyping and scrapping stuff and coming up with new ideas. And Jordan asked, "Hey, do you want to help me get Bloodwash out the door? It's got maybe like a month or two of work left. Like it's just going to be this quick 20-minute game for like $1 on itch.io." This was in August 2020. Mm. um, and
Oh,
Jordan already
you
had,
got snookered in that deal. It's like, oh yes, a couple of weeks.
yeah. Well, it was my fault, but I'll get to that. um, so Jordan already had the premise of the setup of character Sarah going to do laundry in the middle of the night because her washing machine's broken. There's going to be all these characters. Like we're going to read some comics, and then there will be a killer. That was like roughly where it was at. And so that rough story outline stayed, but it kept getting bigger as I joined. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this or this? Just adding more stores. I honestly couldn't tell you for sure whether or not Jordan had already wanted to do waiting in real time for the laundry to be done. But whenever that was decided or we agreed upon doing that, I was like, all right, we have to fill out a lot more stuff to do, which ballooned in a not very economically smart way for game development. We built a game where probably like 50% of the content is optional.
Right.
Like the play times for Bloodwash span between 1 and 2 hours about. And, one of those hours is just how you decide to spend your time at the laundromat or in that strip mall plaza. And so that is really what wound up taking us the most time, filling out that content, adding in all those little things you can do, the mini games, the arcade cabinet, so on, getting all the voice actors to do all their lines. And I'll also say, I mean, spoilers for anyone who hasn't played yet, but the entire cop sequence that was decided on or added like 2 months before it came out.
Wow.
Something like that.
So this is a self-inflicted wound, is what I'm getting at from all this.
Yes, it wound up being a lot bigger than we planned, and we still got a handful of reviews like, man, this game's way too short.
Could you imagine a 20-minute version? I'd be so. I mean, for $1, that price is justified.
Yeah, it was a whole different experience. Very much so, like one of those games you'd find on itch.io for like $1 free. Like you go do this thing, click on a few things, something scary happens, and it probably wraps up pretty soon.
Right. It's funny how you mention building other things to do to give players little moments in between waiting for their laundry to finish. Because instinctually, my gut told me laundry goes into the machine. I have to trigger something for it to quote unquote end in the game world. I didn't think until the dryer cycle that I could check and there's an actual timer on the machine. I was like, oh, I could have just stood here the whole time and just done nothing. But that's just how my, I mean, I wouldn't, but that's just how my mind was like, all right, cool. I have to like somehow make it so I am brought back into the laundromat to check on the wash, like, or get like a audio cue from Sarah saying, oh, the laundry is about done. I should go check on it right now. That kind of a cue.
Yeah, it was a difficult design problem to solve that where we were worried like, okay, are people going to be bored? Like definitely there's the possibility of someone who doesn't jive with or doesn't want to do any of those other optional things we have, and then they have to wait. Like we were on the fence for a while, like, okay, do we make it so if you do a certain number of these optional activities, it speeds up the timer and jumps forward? There was conversation super early on of whether or not we do have it be standard like linear trigger based sequencing, like a lot of these types of horror games do. And we just really didn't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out great because I was like, okay, cool. I know that the game isn't going to expect me to do some sort of obtuse puzzle. I won't be stuck basically. Like I can free roam, watch TV, play some games on the arcade or on my little handheld device,
Hmm.
read some comics, and okay, it's like being at the actual laundromat in a sense.
Yeah. Um, me pers me personally, like I always want to try and pull that type of design and gameplay into the stuff I work on as much
Mm.
as I can. My favorite genre is immersive sims,
Mm.
Dishonored, Deus Ex, System
Mm.
Shock,
Oh
etc.,
yeah,
etc.
really good stuff.
Um, and so it was an interesting challenge to try and pull that into this type of game as much as I could. Um, and what we wound up with was that big section where you're just spending time at a laundromat like a real person would.
Mm.
Um, yeah, there's a big concern that that would be a huge issue for a lot of people. We did we did a bunch of play testing with friends and family and things like that before launch. Get some feedback, see what wasn't working, and we had a play tester who did stand there and wait for the most part and did not go to other stores.
Wow.
And part of that was because they knew it was a horror game, and they knew, or that they were thinking, okay, like if I go to this, like if I go outside or go to this spot, like I'm probably going to get a jump scare, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, because there's been five before that already before you even get to the laundromat.
Yeah. um but we also, there's only probably like two non-optional jump scares in the game. There's the creepy guy on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that in
Mm-hmm.
order to be able to get off the bus or progress it.
Right.
And I guess the other ones are in the cop sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That sequence of the game is very linear,
Mm-hmm.
straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Everything after your dryer finish ends is very linear.
Right. Which
Uh,
it's a good pacing, I feel.
I think it's a very weird pacing, and
Mm-hmm.
we took a risk with that, and we saw uh, with we saw people who did not like that. I mean,
Really?
luckily there were not too many people that didn't like it. We're very happy with how the game's done and is doing, with how people responded to it. But I'd say pretty much everyone that didn't like it tends to say, they didn't like the pacing,
Mm.
um, or they say they really preferred that last section where it was super linear and did
Mm.
not like how you spent the majority of your time.
Interesting. Yeah, because
Yeah.
my take was like I always love like a really sharp twist like that comes out of nowhere. Like now we're changing a fundamental perspective of the game, which
Hmm.
I wasn't expecting at all. And I was just like, oh, now we're here. Now we're, playing as a cop. Spoiler. And I was like, this is really neat. And it just at that point, I'm so invested in Sarah and her life. I'm like, God, let her be okay. What's going on? And now I'm like, from the outside looking in to see what's going on with her whole situation. I thought it
Hmm.
was very very well done.
Thank you. we we're happy with how it turned out. But yeah, we were really expecting it to be a lot more divisive than it
Mhm.
was. Um, we were expecting something like a 60-40 split as to
Uh,
whether people clicked with it and did not.
mhm.
Uh, but we could tell what the reasons would be for people not to like it.
Mhm.
Like the risk we took with the open-ended laundromat section,
Right.
uh, and then just the stark contrast between that main middle chunk of the game and the last bit.
How how do you go about crafting horror around something so mundane as doing laundry, especially with a real time dynamic that's into the mix? what's the ideology for you guys behind how do we make this effective enough to keep the players engaged and want to know more about what's happening around Sarah and this mysterious laundromat and the killer?
Well, we kind of force them to be interested by making them wait.
Hmm.
um, you know, that as part of the
Really
advantage
good.
of the real world timer.
Right.
Like like do something or don't. That's on you.
Hmm.
But unless you just want to sit here and wait the however many minutes it is, like eight or 10 minutes for the washer, uh, then go look around, go talk to people, um, go see what you can click on and do. Um, I think that worked out as opposed to the approach of, okay, now I need to figure out what I need to do to quote unquote make the like washing machine finish.
Hmm.
Um, and and it fits in this real world context of doing your laundry. Is while making it, we can think, okay, like what would we want to do if we were waiting for our laundry? Like, okay, like I guess we'd want to look at other stores in the plaza, talk to the other people around. Oh, if we have these little bits of evidence or clues for the killer, we'll like, wouldn't it be cool if we could ask other people about it?
Hmm.
Um, and that was probably our biggest um, most significant thing in the game, I think. The thought, what wouldn't it be cool if we could ask the other NPCs about these things we can find?
Yeah, I think that really adds a lot because it's all about that breadcrumb trail you're slowly like leaving and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of slow build, slow burn kind of horror where by the time you have made your rounds with the plaza and all the storefront shopkeepers and you go into the bathroom for the first time, there's a funky thing in there I don't want to spoil too much. But the dread is there. That sense of a place where I should be safe, a laundromat is suddenly not so safe anymore.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of very making very believable things. Like
Mm,
I'm going to do my laundry, and there's someone walking around here that does not want good things for me.
right.
But I guess I'll keep doing my laundry.
Have you had any sort of weird laundromat stories ever that or characters you've come across at a laundromat at some point that you guys sort of used as influence here or you want to share like some sort of freaky incident?
Sadly, me, no. I wish I knew whether or not Jordan
Mhm.
had stories.
Yeah.
Probably based on this game.
Well, okay. So to that note, I do have to ask, what is the obsession with Ski Freak in this game?
uh, that's Jordan made that
Is
game.
it? Oh my God! Yes. See, I was wondering. I was wondering. Like, okay, there's a poster. That's neat. It's really cool. But then there's like a full blown trailer on the TV, and I'm like, why is
Yeah,
there so much Ski Freak in this game?
yeah. That's one of
Wow.
Jordan's 2D games that
Wow.
he made for Puppet Combo's Patreon.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and there are a handful of other real like indie game posters in Peepaw's store. Like when you click around on the
Yeah.
games,
Mm-hmm.
all of those are real things that you can
Mm-hmm.
Google and find.
Yeah. Like the little adult section also. That was
In
it's
theory, those are real things you can look up
right.
and find as
Oh my
well.
God. Again, it just adds to that. There's like that layer of filth now on top of
Yeah.
it's so it's such it's that 70s 80s horror vibe where everything was just even the VHS
I
sort
shouldn't
of
really
like
be watching this.
yeah, it's like I'll have mom and dad be like, "What's on the TV? What are you watching? Turn this filth off kind of thing going on, but it just takes my mind back to a very special place in my youth where these things were so taboo, and it's just seeing it in such a way, it just in my 40-year-old self, it just I feel like a kid again. I love it. It's like, yay.
I have a weird relationship with horror because
Mhm,
I got into horror from I had a babysitter when I was like a toddler practically,
mhm,
and her husband loved horror movies.
mhm.
So I was watching like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes at like 3 years
Yes.
old. Started watching Friday the 13th at like 4.
Mhm,
uh, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which
mhm.
is remains one of my favorites to this day.
So it's so bad it's good.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a joy to watch.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel there's something that that era of horror does so well that modern horror can't really hold the candle to. Like I like recently I would say films like Hereditary, really really
Hmm.
well made horror film. One of the best I've seen in my entire life. But if I'm watching like, a Rosemary's Baby or a Pieces, which is like super schlock
Hmm.
horror movie, I would watch that any given day than most things coming out from studios these days because it's just there was something that was so raw and cheap about it
Hmm.
that made it so charming and so lovable. And all of that I can see the DNA of that is in this game every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing both Jordan and I love,
Mhm,
and something we've spoken about and agreed on. Like when production values get so much higher, something's lost, or even like such a huge shift for horror was moving from practical effects to CGI
mhm,
stuff. With practical effects, you like someone made that with their hands and like put that
mhm,
together. Um, you lose. It's less personal.
mhm,
And same could be said with like lower resolution, like or even like I love found footage stuff.
mhm,
A lot of what I love about that is how personal it feels. Like you're not supposed to be watching this. Like this wasn't meant for you to watch unedited like this with these people arguing, walking through the woods.
mhm,
And yeah, when you look at a lot of modern horror, it just feels so put together,
mhm.
like precisely, like
There's
very
like yeah,
calculated.
there's a formula they're trying to hit essentially like, okay,
Hmm.
let's have the jump scare here for the audience, for the reaction. It's all
Yeah,
very by the numbers and you lose a lot of the creativity and the fun in horror when you're trying to when you set out to do something that you're not that's what horror is intended to do essentially.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what are some of the films and movies that inspired you in making this game?
Um, Jordan and I spoke a lot about the classic Friday the 13th
Mhm,
movies, and we always pinpoint those as something that we feel made those special is all the characters really being characters.
mhm,
Like in all of those early movies, all of those campers or counselors really had personalities.
right.
Um, I'm blanking on names, but there's the overweight character in part three who's
Mhm.
such a character, and
Oh, what's his name? With the has the
he gets hit
mask?
with the
Does
harpoon.
does the pranks?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, what's his stupid name? I'm gonna hate myself because they yell it all the time, and I'm like, oh, so and
Yeah.
so, like,
Um, so Jordan has a very character first approach, I'd
hmm
say. Um, and that makes everything a lot easier, I feel.
hmm
Uh, is it we can think about, okay, this is the general premise of what we want to happen, and then we fill it out with characters. Like,
hmm
oh, if there's this weird old man running a weird store that just has a bunch of stuff and this is how he talks. Like that'll be really cool. We can just put a mess of items to find. Like, sure, he has a bunch of fish in the back of the store.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he'd have an adult section and
Mhm.
assume you were stealing stuff because you're young.
Yeah, you could get some smut, a bag of Doritos, and a goldfish all in the same run.
Exactly. But yeah, so those Friday the 13th movies that put a lot of emphasis on dialogue and characters. If I think as opposed to, I don't know, probably the Saw movies where you don't really care about the characters or what type of people they are at all. And you're just watching to see what happens.
I just did a quick
You look like you're about to disagree with me very strongly.
no. I had to do a quick Google search on that fucking character's name, Shelly. Shelly was his
Shelley,
name.
yes.
Because it was gonna gnaw at me until forever if I didn't do a quick search on that. No, but I do agree because like a lot of those films, you have to tell a story and personality and all that. They got to stand out and be memorable and they have to be
Hmm.
distinctive at the same time. And having like someone as, let's say, the jock, the bully, the slutty girl, and it's all just dialed up to like 11.
Hmm.
That's part of the fun of
Yeah,
these
exactly.
films. Yeah.
Yeah. And couldn't tell you how Jordan comes up with some of them, like creepy guy or
Mhm.
Stan with his super weird outfit.
Oh my God. Stan. Stan
But
looked like
people
he
latch
was,
onto this.
Stan was like, had this weird, like, am I glued to my door? Like, what's going on? Like, I'm like, are you okay, bro?
Yeah, we like halfway through development, we were like, man, these characters do feel a little static. It
Mhm.
would be cool if the first one we thought about was the patron of Laundromat. Like, man, it would be cool
Mhm.
if we could have him move around a
Mhm.
lot. And then we are like, man, we don't want to do that. That's too much work. Maybe next time.
Right,
Uh,
right.
and that's something we're like locked in on the next game. Like NPCs are people that move around and do stuff.
So I think that's a good segue into what's the future look like for you guys? Like, is the next project already on the in the works? Like, is it sort of, is there a premise, a plot, a sort of a core gameplay mechanics in your heads? Without giving away too much, what's
Right.
next for you guys?
Um, yes, we are. We've already started work on stuff. We before Bloodwash came out, we were like, all right, we have to take a break for a little bit. Um, we were both like pretty burnt out after Bloodwash. Like I'm sure any developer can tell you the last 10% of a project is more stressful than the other 90%.
Mhm.
Uh, just frantic, very busy. So we took a break as much as we could for a few weeks, but immediately started thinking about what we wanted to do next.
Mhm.
And I won't talk about story or anything like that. I mean, Jordan's already teased on Twitter, like
Mhm.
there may or may not be a camp setting
Oh my
inspired by
God.
it, like Friday the 13th,
Oh,
and those a bunch of camp
oh my
counselors
God.
with very unique personalities,
If
like we were just talking about.
if we could get a game with that setting with PS1 looking graphics, I think I might just die.
But of course, I'll
I
say
very,
again,
very well die.
um, we are putting a bigger twist into it.
Hmm, of course.
Like a lot of people went into Bloodwash not expecting that open-ended laundromat section at all.
Hmm.
I think people will go into this camp game, as we're calling it, surprised even more by how how much it changes the like slasher game
Oh my God.
setup.
That's the perfect sales pitch right there. Because again, Bloodwash, when you watch a trailer, like my first impression was, oh, it's being a laundromat being chased by a killer, probably.
Hmm.
and I gotta like either avoid them and not get killed, or I'll get a game over screen. But that wasn't at all what happened. I
Hmm.
was like, these guys actually put some thought into this. Very, very nice. All right, Henry. I think with that, as I adjust myself on this chair, it's time to plunge the knife deep, deep down, all the way through to the heart of the matter. And that is rapid fire, where we learn more about you. So, first things first, and this was like at the top of my list of questions that I've been dying to ask you this from the get go, but I was like, I'll wait till the end. Mm-mm. If I were to call you for a late night sexy conversation, what was the first thing you would say to me?
If you were calling me
If I was,
and
if I was, yeah, if
I
I
have to
call,
provide you with the sexy conversation.
yes, give me. You can say anything you'd like. We have to use some sort of sexy voice. It's I find your number scrolled on a laundromat wall in the bathroom. I was like, I'll give this number a phone call, and I give you a call, and it's like you're one of those sexy late night 900 numbers. What's your opening line?
What are you wearing?
I love it. I love it. You nailed it.
I think that's just an easy go-to.
Yeah, you crushed it. You crushed it. And you avoid like if a guy or a girl's call again. That's actually
Exactly.
it covers all the bases.
Yeah. Very neutral, open to anyone.
Uh, what is your favorite Friday the 13th movie?
Freddy versus Jason.
Wow, I did not expect that.
Yep.
Wow, wow, wow. It's an odd choice. It's a
Yeah,
really odd choice. It's because I feel that is more of a Jason film than a Freddy film.
absolutely.
Um, just of kind
And
of
if
it's how it's
if
set up.
someone's upset, I didn't choose one that's literally Friday
Nah,
the 13th.
it's your decision. I'm not gonna castrate you for that. Like, end the podcast. Um, that film, I feel it's you're taking two iconic horror figures and you make it work somehow in a universe without being total garbage. Is
Yeah, I was amazed it wasn't total garbage.
yeah, yeah. Which and again, it's also after like a 10 or 12 year payoff of
Yeah.
build up, like waiting for that moment.
Hmm.
What is your least favorite film in the franchise? How about that?
Ooh. Maybe part 7.
Ooh, the telekinetic one, the new blood.
Yeah. Uh,
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
I I just felt like it went a little too out there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something I was just saying that I love about Michael Myers is that his kills are much more grounded,
Mm-hmm.
much less crazy. Like even in Freddy versus Jason, my favorite Jason movie, he throws his machete like an Olympic javelin thrower at one
Oh
point,
yeah.
and it's just I prefer the like less surreal kills
While it's on
for him.
fire, nonetheless.
Yes, yes.
But that his first big kill with the bed crunch.
Oof. Yeah.
That's some good shit. But part 7, I feel that film was a very well made Jason movie, some great kills, and I'm a sucker for the zombie look of Jason that movie gave us. But
Hmm.
it was just it leaned into Carrie for some weird reason too much.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why they had to do that, but still, it's fun. It's fun, and again, you don't get that nowadays with horror. Well, unless you watch, well, what was it? Malignant that came out recently. That is just, whoo!
I could not get more than 30 minutes into that movie.
Oh my God, Henry, just listen, get a bottle of whiskey, finish it, and then watch that movie.
Okay.
Because by the time you get to the end, it is the definition, the epitome of a good bad movie. Like
Okay.
it is garbage in the best way imaginable. Just I'm just saying, give it a
Maybe I'll give it another try.
Yeah, give it a second. Give it a second chance. Now, you mentioned before that you wouldn't develop a game or a sequel based on an existing horror game franchise. But what
Mhm.
if someone told you, hey, Henry, here's this long-standing horror movie franchise that has no game for it as of yet? Would you take on that challenge with a blank check to do it? And if you were to, which franchise would that be?
I'd definitely be more open to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and obviously with the caveat, someone's just, yeah, go crazy, like do whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want. Sorry, give me
And
1 second. I got dogs going crazy.
listen, my dog is very much locked up in the other room. So,
Um,
you
but I'd
know.
be torn. I think they did a good job with the Friday the 13th game. I thought that
Mm-hmm.
was very fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'd, you know what? Years ago I had an idea for a Nightmare on Elm Street game that I
Ooh,
was really excited about.
hit me.
And it was as much as possible, you don't know that it's a Nightmare on Elm Street game right away. Did I say Friday the 13th before? I meant Nightmare on Elm Street. um, you are going through your day as a normal high school student. Uh, you know, dialogue choices, deciding how you interact with characters, and that influences your dreams as you like shape this character.
Mm-hmm.
So based on how you play throughout your normal day, that then influences how Freddy behaves with you and what your
That
dreams are like.
that is so neat. How, because that is a twist that you have to have with a different title in place. You can't call it Nightmare on Elm Street because you're saving that moment for, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm playing a Freddy game.
Yeah, that would never be doable
Right.
for that type of game, but
It's like we're gonna sacrifice all the marketing
yeah.
for this one. Now that's a risk that no one will ever take, but your mind went there, and I appreciate that. It's really, really good. It reminds me of about taking risks. The original premise for the NES version of Nightmare on Elm Street, which was having players take on the role as Freddy and killing a bunch of
Right.
kids, and they were like, "No, let's not do that because it's
Probably not
children."
going to look the best. Yeah.
Right, right. But I really wish someone would take a chance on that IP as a video game franchise. Like, there's so much in there that you could do to make a really decent Freddy game.
I also feel like Nightmare on Elm Street is the hardest to do anything with because it is so dependent on Robert Englund.
Oh yeah, it's true.
Whereas that's not really the case with like Halloween or
Right,
Friday the 13th.
or Chainsaw Massacre or those kind of games.
Hmm.
But now I know Robert's like getting up there in his years. Having him do voice for a game
Oh yeah.
easier than doing like, do you want to put on makeup for 10 hours again?
Right.
No. um what what scares you, Henry? What gives you the hibbly jibblies at night or any time during the day
Uh,
for that matter? What?
I live next to a park and I walk my dog every night, and
Uh-huh.
there are a lot of trees that are in weird shapes, and it's lit like a horror movie, that park. Like there's
Mhm.
one yellow street lamp in the middle of the park, and that's it. So it's definitely imagining seeing people or things out of the corner of my eye, like
Mm.
shadows that look like people.
Do you ever like scare yourself on purpose just for that weird sensation you get deep down inside? I do all the time because I'm insane.
Well, how, do you mean like forcefully like watching or playing something that
Yeah,
you know is going to scare you?
or like walk down the street and think about someone's behind me right now, or like,
Yeah, there were a few months when I was in college. I was in Chicago, and I had a late night class, and it like ended at like 9:30 or 10. And I would always listen to the Halloween theme
mm-hmm,
while I was walking, specifically like Trent Reznor's like mix of it.
wow.
That gave some bad vibes.
You know, I get those thoughts sometimes in the shower as well. When I'm like rinsing my
Oh
hair
yeah.
off, I'm like, Aisha, like, okay, now it's a scene from Psycho. Like, why do I do this shit to myself?
Can only keep your eyes closed for so
Right,
long.
right, right. I'm like, all right, the door's shut, it's locked, no one's there. All right, we're good, we're good. All right. But it's like I do a quick rinse because you never know.
Exactly.
Um, what was a recent horror game that made a really big impression on you?
Hmm. That's a good one. I don't. What's the last horror game I've played?
Mm,
Um, I was. I gave Phasmophobia a real chance
mm,
for the first time not too long
mm.
ago. And I was a little pulled out of it by being a Unity developer and recognizing like all the assets from the asset store. Um,
Oh, that's precious. Oh my God. That is
but
a developer specific problem.
but I did enjoy the randomized elements
Hmm.
of trying to figure out what this randomly generated ghost
Hmm.
is, what they're doing. And I also like started playing with a friend who's like an expert at it, and that pulled me out of it too, because they're just like, all right, we need to do this to get this many points, and then like we need to do this things to make this money. Uh,
Yeah. No.
I had more fun when I was playing with friends who had no idea how to play, and we were just losing every time.
Yeah. That's how you're supposed to play that game.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends who are like that, who are just they've been playing a game for like 80 hours before I get there. And it's like, I'm not trying
Yeah.
to don't power level me. I'm just can I experience the thing first?
Yeah.
But I don't want to slow you down. Don't get mad at me. I'm not at your level yet. Okay, I'm gonna go away.
Let
And
me fail.
yeah, I'm gonna just turn off my status so it's like I'm offline forever. So you don't see me on the internet on my Steam account. Um, if you were cast in a horror movie, are you more of a slasher killer, slutty first death cheerleader, or the final girl? What role do you think best
I'm
represents your
probably like
personality?
Shelley from Friday the 13th Part
Mm,
3, but if he wasn't an idiot.
that's
Like
actually
half Shelley, half final girl.
right. Shelley made an impact, memorable, and a
Yeah.
and a really good death also.
I
And
would definitely be messing with my friends while we're like about to die.
in those films too, they taught us how to be ourselves too, growing up, like to embrace who you are. And like Shelley too, like chubby little kid, like stood up for himself and like ran over the bullies' motorcycles at some point. So courage in the face of danger. Also, see, these are strong values. I think
Really
that
looking on the bright side there.
yeah, I feel every kid, because I think I was a lot like you, Henry, because I was raised on horror films when I was a kid too, from my cousins. We would watch them when I was 3 years
Hmm.
old. So imagine your babysitter's husband. It's my two older cousins saying, "We're gonna watch Chainsaw Massacre or Slumber Party Massacre this night or Chucky,"
Yeah.
and I'm like 4 years old, and I'm staring at my little sister's doll in the corner of her room. And I'm like, that's gonna come
Chucky
in.
was one that got me for a while when I was a
That's
kid.
gonna yeah,
Like,
because it's something small in your house, and we had dolls everywhere.
yeah.
Let's see. What is something you have done in your life that should have gotten you killed?
Hmm. That's a tough one for me because I've never even like broken a bone or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I fall a lot of scrapes and cuts and scars and stitches, but no broken bones either.
I back when I lived in New York City, I longboarded, and there were longboarding events like
Mm,
called the Broadway Bomb, where just hundreds of people would skate down Broadway.
mm,
Um, almost got hit by a car a lot doing stuff like that. So like yeah, probably almost died
Right. Yeah.
many
Okay.
times there.
All right. Oh lordy. All right. I think a good final question here is, if you could wish for a sequel or a new entry into a dormant, successful, iconic legacy horror film franchise or game franchise. Now, it's not you working on it, it's just you wish it and it happens. Which would you pick? Be it a
I
movie
would
or a game?
I would absolutely wish into existence Freddy versus Jason 2.
Wow. But there's a book, there's a graphic novel for that. You can read that with Ash.
I that was a very good comic series. I
Yes.
enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
But make a movie of that even better.
Yeah.
Get Bruce Campbell in there. That would be amazing.
Oh, Lord. Yo, that book is dope. They
Yeah,
brought
I
back
remember
all the people of that one.
I was reading that in real time.
Mhm.
I was young. I was maybe like 10 years old going to the comic store every week as it came out. Like
Man.
convincing the person at the checkout like no, it's fine. Like you can sell me this.
Yeah, I'm totally legit. I'm totally legit. Wow, yeah, I would love to see that adapted into a film because that was, they brought back like Alice and the Dream Warriors, and it was just a
I
lot
would
of good
need them
shit.
to I would want them to change and like let someone win.
Hmm.
Like let like forgive forgive me IP copyright holders, but like one of you is lesser than the other.
And I feel like I may know the answer to this question, but I gotta ask you one last thing. Have you heard of 13 Fanboy? You know what that
No,
is? Okay.
I do not.
13 Fanboy is a film that's coming out, I think, sometime this year or next. It's the premise is there's a killer who grew up watching all the Jason movies, and
Okay.
he wrote letters to the cast and they never wrote back to him. So it's the actors playing themselves being
I
stalked
see. I
by
just
this
Googled,
killer.
like, you got
Yeah.
Kane Hodder in
Kane
there.
Hodder in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I really loved Wes Craven's New Nightmare for all the
Mm.
meta stuff it did.
Yes. Yes.
Honestly, that might be my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street.
Mm-hmm. That is some good shit. Man, this is like a whole other conversation. Like
Yeah,
let's talk about Freddy Krueger now for like an hour and a half. But we can't because the show's over. Henry, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. Again, I love talking about this shit. I could talk about it forever
absolutely.
and ever and ever. It's been great. Where can folks who are listening follow you and get their hands on Bloodwash? Give us the whole PR marketing spiel right now.
I can be found on Twitter at Henry Hoare 8, the number 8. And Bloodwash can be found on Steam and itch.io just by searching Bloodwash, one word. And hopefully in the future, it can be found on even more platforms.
Awesome. Yeah, I just picked up Murder House, by the way, for
Oh, yeah.
PlayStation, which got some good shit. Good shit.
A semblance of what's to come.
Oh my God. Yes. All right. Henry, thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for joining us once again on the Dual Screams podcast. It's October is, we're like midway through. I'm a little sad that horror stuff's gonna go away for a little while, but we got some big stuff coming up soon. We got Dead by Daylight, Madison, some great coverage of horror games around the corner. So stay tuned, always here for awesome game coverage and awesome in-depth interviews with our favorite game developers, which Henry is now among that elite group because he makes awesome shit. So thank you, Henry. Thank you, listeners. And as always, please be excellent to each other.